Well, I know of several groups that are put together for that. And interestingly enough, it's not always just Sasquatch that they're involved in researching or helping people to research. They focus on ufology too.
Well,
And,
sure. But
but it's interesting to me that those two things seem to be getting, especially in recent years, that those two things seem to be getting thrown together a lot more.
which I think is a really bad idea.
I think
I
so too, but
think,
tell me why you do.
well, we can't do it all, right? I mean, what I tell people that ask me of my opinion about research in general, be it UFO, Sasquatch, or whatever you feel is your passion, make yourself an expert in one thing. Even like for me, it's not just Sasquatch, it's specific things within that category. I
Right.
can't be an expert of anything if I don't perfect it and practice it. So I'm not going to try to perfect everything in Sasquatch research. I'm going to pick one thing that I know I'm good at and I know that I can really focus on, which is tracking. Tracking and cast making and wildlife DNA collection. I don't talk about what DNA evidence is. I can teach you how to collect DNA evidence or wildlife evidence. And my biggest goal is we were all doing it backwards. We were all trying to prove it's either Sasquatch or UFO or whatever. Not me. I'm more interested in disproving everything else and leaving Sasquatch at the end of the road. It's the last thing I'm going to look at. So let's say tracking and spore and sign is what I'm really focused on right now. I'm trying to get certified as a certified tracker in the United States so that I can go about and look at anything in the field that people are like, oh, well, look at this. This was made by a Bigfoot. Well, I'm going to try to tell you at least three things that why it's not made by Bigfoot, because I know what else does it. We need to reverse how we look at research. Everybody wants to prove what is that entity instead of disproving everything else, natural occurrences, other animals, human behavior. All those things are super important. And if I hear one person say, oh, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, no human comes out here. Well, you're there. So
I
that's a
always think
falsity.
that
You
too. Nobody ever comes here. Well, you did.
Yes, exactly. So that I think is a big deal in the sense of doing proper research is what are you exactly doing and why do you believe that? Where is the evidence that says this is 100% Bigfoot? Is it your opinion or is it facts? What the problem is I think people's experiences are way more important than the species itself in their world. For me, the species is the most important thing. My opinion means nothing. It doesn't, I'm just a tool. I'm just a tool to help. My name doesn't matter. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is how I go about evidence collection. And my emotions, everybody puts their emotions into it. I try to retract my emotions because I try to follow that Occam razor rule. The most possible is most probable. And whether I agree with what happened or not really shouldn't matter. All that should matter is the facts that lay before me. And that's all I should be putting towards my data and my evidence collection, not what I think it should be. That's why I don't look within the Bigfoot community for help or reasoning, I look outside of the community. I don't even tell people what I'm doing when I ask for help. I just basically present something and say, what do you think this is? I don't ever mention the word Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
If you're not going out to the Bigfoot community, and it's large, and there are some good researchers involved in it, but if you're not coming to them, then when you go out and you're seeking outside information, are you seeking outside forensic help with the things that you have found? Or are you, what specifically are you looking for when you step outside the realm?
Well, let's say I get vocals, which I never have, but there's plenty out there. I would take those vocals and send them to a wildlife animal sound specialist. I wouldn't be asking my Bigfoot friends, do you think, I put vocals and all kinds of, vocals in particular on a spectrograph. And I'll look at them, and if they hit a certain hertz level, then, which is outside of human ability or wolf ability or coyote ability, if it doesn't fall within the abilities of known wildlife, then I would go outside the Bigfoot community and say, hey, to a specialist who does wildlife sound research, and there are those people out there.
Yes, there are.
That's the problem, that I don't think people realize that every aspect of what we think is research, there is a specialist outside of the Bigfoot community that knows these things. And that's what I try to do, is hunt those people down and send them those files and say, can you tell me what this is? It's just like with wildlife DNA collection. When I think the word unknown is extremely dangerous. If you go to a Bigfoot conference and someone gets up on stage and they say, I collected this hair, I sent it off to someone who did a comparison. So with hair, you can't really do DNA on it unless you have the root of the hair, but you can actually do a comparison with all other wildlife hair. And if that person comes back and says, I find it as an unknown, that's fine. But what you need to be doing when that person comes back with an unknown, you need to find at least two more outside representations who can look at it as well. And everybody needs to come to the same conclusion. Because when you're doing a comparison, there is a lot of room for human error. Because there is not right. And so people get up on stage and they'll say, this came back unknown. Well, how many times did it come back unknown? Did it come back unknown 3 times or 1 time or 5 times? How many times did you send that off? That becomes a dangerous word, because once you say unknown, everybody goes, oh, that's Sasquatch. That's a hair.
When basically
that's
all it
Sasquatch.
is unknown.
Well, basically all it is unknown to the person that did the analyzation. And it doesn't mean they were always right, because this is not a for sure science. This is opinionated. This is somebody's knowledge working with that hair and making comparisons. And when you start really working with hair comparisons, they're very, very hard. It is not an easy science. And I'm not trying to talk down to those people. I just think that people are complacent. And once they get that idea, oh, so-and-so came back with unknown, so it has to be this or that, instead of continuing to search out for other people who will say, yes, that was unknown. I came to the same conclusion. You need it in the scientific world. You need at least 3 unbiased opinions that all come to the same conclusion. And then you've got something really cool.
Let me ask you something. We've only got, believe it or not, 3 minutes until our next break. I can't believe this time. But have you come across instances where you have, and we're going to get into some other stuff relevant to this after our top of the hour break because it's going to take some time, but where you come or have dealt with people who have dealt with forensic pathologists, for example, who say, well, we think this could be, we don't know. Have you had like mainstream pathology labs that were less than willing to come forward and say, this is something that's unusual? I know that in several other anomalous fields, that's an issue, a true issue.
I don't believe so. I honestly, there has been, and I'm involved with some things like with the Olypic Project where there have been some samples taken, and it's come back everything but primate. And no, at this point, unlike, I guess the only example, and I wasn't involved with it, the Justin Sameha event where he had blood on his boots and he came back with what they call bear. That was all involved with people who were on TV. And I'm not saying, and I know the people involved except for Justin Sameha, but Bart Catino is very involved, some others who I'm good friends with. I believe that story has something to offer. The people they chose to work with were more interested in TV views, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it came back as bear, and that's fine. That is what it is, and that's in the past. I don't think so. Let's say if I came up with my big thing right now is I don't understand why people tend to want to send DNA evidence to a human DNA lab.
Right.
You need to be sending it to a wildlife DNA lab because, number one, it's pennies on the dollar. Number two, they're willing to, all you got to do is send in whatever you have and just say, what is this?
Right. And
they are people that work with a huge spectrum of wildlife, whereas the human DNA lab is going to focus on human DNA, correct?
You know, I've got to stop you.
And sure.
I'm so sorry. We did hit that wall with this. Look, this is only 2 minutes, and we will be right back with more with Shelly Covington-Montana.